Well, hello, thank you for joining me today again on the Church History Trail. And where we are actually today is in the office of the Monks of the Moravian Church. So, if you remember, I've done a few videos on the Moravian Church here at Kilwirlan, which is near Royal Hillsborough. And I have David here, and David is a lay preacher with the Moravian Church here, and he's also the attendant here. And David's going to tell us a wee bit about the history then of the Monks, and then as we progress in other wee videos, we'll see some of the church and also some of actually the hidden passages that are connected with this church. So, David, can you tell me a wee bit about the Monks then?
The Manse is the recreation of a church that was already here in the late 1700s. It had gone into decline. There were only 6 members when Vasily Zula, who was a chieftain from the Greek uprising against the Ottoman Empire. Vasily fought at the Battle of Missolonghi, where the Greeks were overwhelmingly defeated, and thousands of his comrades were crucified after the battle. Vasily was a chieftain, and he managed to battle his way out of the battlefield with his company and make good his escape. Now, I work with people who have post-traumatic stress disorder, and from what we know about Vasily Zula, he probably would have met the criteria for that. So when he came here to Dublin in the early 1800s, he met a Moravian woman in Dublin called Annie Lightfoot, who was an organist at the Moravian church there, but originally from this area. They fell in love, they got married, and Vasily became ordained in the Moravian church. And they probably thought, given his paranoia, his symptomology, and his quirks, that, well, we'll send him up north to Hillsborough and see what he can do with this old church. He approached the Downshires, who had bequeathed Hillsborough Castle to the royal family. And he tried to meet with the Downshires a number of times, but they kept turning him away, telling the servants to just shoo him away from the door. So he interviewed with the local paper, and he said, I'm coming to Ireland. He hoped to meet an Englishman and a lord, and he met neither. So the Downshires were, who is this fellow? And there was an antagonistic relationship to start with, but they did become good friends. And it was sort of under the patronage with the Downshires that Zula was able to rebuild the church, I think, in 1848. But Mark, that's the historian bit you know more about. And Zula was still worried about there being a bounty on his head by the Ottomans. That every room he built here in the manse has 2 exits. And there are a couple of hidden areas where people think he probably hid. I'm going to show you one of those. But having been in the American Army myself, to me, it sounds more, and it has the dimensions of a fighting position rather than somewhere where he would hide. But we're actually looking at one of the hidden passages as we sit here. And that whole wall over here, Mark, is the hidden passage behind that. Now, my children and myself call it the Narnia wardrobe. And we'll show you that in a moment.
Brilliant. So tell me this then. John Sennick, did John Sennick, the evangelist, Moravian evangelist, actually build the church here?
There's been a church here for nearly 270 years. And Moravians tend to live in community. For those of your members who don't know, the Moravians are the oldest Protestant-led Reformed church in the world. Predates Luther and Calvin and the Church of England. Goes back to John Huss in the Czech Republic, to Moravia that's now in the Czech Republic. So yes, there have been 3 upgrades to the church, and we're living in the newest sort of configuration of that. The church has increased and waned, and a lot of the farmhands and bricklayers from this area, when Belfast was being built, would have walked into Belfast and started to settle there and build their own Moravian church, of which there's been a number, including the University Road church facing the Queen's University itself.
Yes, I done a wee video on that actually.
All right.
That's right beside King William's Park there.
That's right, yeah.
Which was part of the Williams train on their way to the Boyne.
Boyne,
They actually
yeah.
passed that way.
Yeah.
You mentioned John Huss there. I believe that's where we get the term "your goose is cooked."
Oh, really?
Yes, because Huss means goose,
Yeah,
and John Huss was from Hussinick,
yeah.
or what would be known in English as Goosetown. And of course, John Huss was burnt in 1415.
That's right.
And so basically that's where the term came from, that your goose is cooked.
Very good, very good. I did not know that.
I thought you might have known that thing. But another misconception I think is a lot of people think that John Huss started the Moravian Church. He didn't actually start it, but certainly the doctrines and views of the Moravians were definitely based on Huss's teaching. Would that be correct to say that?
That is correct. It was the Moravians are more of a community living people.
Yes.
And so it would have been actually that whole sense of community originally that would have developed the Moravian.
I can hear your wee dog snoring.
Yeah, that's she's not snoring. She's having to go at the puppy.
Oh, is that what she's doing?
This is
I thought you were snoring.
Lilith and Lucy.
They like the attention, don't they?
They do like the attention.
And what did you say their names were?
This is Lucy.
That's Lucy. Hello, Lucy.
Are you going to say hello?
Hello,
Say
Lucy.
hello? No, you don't want to.
And what do you call the other
The
one?
big girl is Lilith,
Hello, Lilla.
the woman who won't bow down to any man.
Hello, Lilla. And so I think it was maybe about 45 years or 40 years after John Huss that the Moravians were formed. Would that be right?
They were, and they were reconstituted again in the 1700s with a great revival.
Yes.
So yes, there was the sort of 300th anniversary and of the original Moravian concept. And then there was the recommissioning of the Moravian Church in the 18th century. And then they would have had more of a missionary field. Today, that missionary work has come to more fruition in the Caribbean and in some African countries than anywhere else. However, the Wesley brothers also would have taken great influence from the Moravian Church. The Wesley brothers originally did not want to establish another church, but something within the Church of England. And it was the Moravians that encouraged them, just go ahead and do your thing.
And the Moravians had a big impact on Wesley's conversion.
That's right. Yeah, yeah.
Whenever he was coming back from Georgia on the boat, and they get into a bit of bother, and Wesley thought that they were going to
Die. Yeah.
But he noticed that the Moravians were singing psalms, so they weren't worried at all. And this had a real major impact
Impact on him. Yeah.
And then he was invited to hear a Moravian preacher in Aldersgate Street, and the preacher was actually speaking from the commentary of Luther on Romans,
That's right.
and
yeah.
he was gloriously converted in that meeting, which was fantastic.
And it was the power of that conversion which was central then to the Methodist Church.
Yes,
And that the huge crowds, conversion crowds that swept over England, that people were reconverted in mass crowds.
yes. And then there's one other gentleman I'd like to talk to you about, and that's Count Sendendorf.
Yes, Count Sendendorf was the person who brought the Moravians into his care, and he, in essence, became their great patron and protectorate. And without his backing, I suppose the Moravians may have just been a bit of a flash in the pan. as I said, they were quite persecuted, and they were a small, tight knit community.
He was certainly a tremendous character. He was very much, you could say, like Wesley. He had a fire in his belly, didn't he?
Yes, and that's one of the real interesting things about the Moravians, which is the union of brothers, Unitas Fratrum, is that they work very simple in their theology, very much pared back in their worship, and basically their motto was in all things essential unity, in all things, all other things, liberty, and in everything, love. And they were one of the first churches to celebrate in the vernacular and to offer both elements of communion, the bread and cup,
Yes.
to the congregants, which we take for granted today, but that would have been huge. It would have, in essence, brought the priestly class down back into the flock. And of course, you can imagine if somebody said you had to give up your wealth again today.
And also, the really during before just prior to the Reformation, the laity weren't really allowed to take of the cup because they believed obviously in transubstantiation. They believed that the blood and the wine became the body and blood of Christ, and they were scared of dropping it. And
Yes,
so
yeah.
that actually paralyzed then the ordinary parishioners, and they weren't partaking of that. They weren't banned from partaking of it, but they just didn't do it.
This is the thing. It was a huge mystery faith that everything was done in Latin, a language that many of them wouldn't have spoken. It was something that the priest did with his back turned to the congregation, and it all took place away from them up there in the new Holy of Holies. So for the priest to say, no, I'm one of you, we are a royal priesthood, as it says in 2 Peter's, and for the priest to be first among equals again, a term that we've heard many times. That's seismic. That people were allowed to have their own participation and be asked to lead prayer, lead church. And there's a lovely Moravian ceremony, the cup. And those of us who come from an Irish background and the 19th century potato famine, and where we have the parting glass, the Moravians had that a long time ago, and it was the parting cup, that there was a celebration of sharing a cup, and that would be done by the laity, not by a minister. And it was done particularly when Moravians were going out on a mission field, that the whole congregation would come together and share a blessed cup.
And also, there's not many people would realize, but the part of the origin, at least, of the preaching pulpit actually comes from the Reformation, because up until the Reformation, the priests were seen as sacrificing priests. But then with the Reformation, the sacrificing priests were done away with, and so it was just a plain table now to show that instead of sacrificing priests because of the finished work that Christ has already done, that now they were ministering priests. And so as you said a minute ago, that every believer is a priest of God, and we're ministering priests of God. So thank you very much for talking to us. I'm looking forward to seeing these secret passages. I just hope I don't get lost.
You'll need a broad lamp, but I've got one for you if you need one.
So stay tuned for that. And thank you for watching. Again, if you enjoyed the channel, please like and subscribe. God bless.